I think there should be an Inside Out version made for Tango.
Okay, let's get started. Here we go.
I mean, all the voices that are in your head at any one time at a milonga. You know?
Yeah.
It's pretty interesting.
Fear is the first one that comes to mind for me.
Fear?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
For me, I think it's anxiety. I think that character in the cartoon of anxiety, which hopefully the listeners won't mind us referring so much to the movie because it was kind of such a great visualization of potentially what's happening in your head. The sort of the mannerisms in the cartoon of anxiety was very just spot on, it seemed like.
Mm.
And you know,
the way she was drawn.
I don't know if it was I don't know if it was the way the character was drawn necessarily. I'm sure it contributes a lot, but some of the logic that she used to explain her actions was a logic that I was familiar with. Like, for example, to say something like, oh, I need to impress this person because if I do, they're going to be friends with me. Mm-hmm. And in Tango, that's such a common feeling that we have from so many sides, whether it's like the way we look. If I look a certain way, then I'm going to get more attention. And then it extends beyond that. Like, let's say you dance with somebody that you really like, and now you want to dance in a way that they want so that they'll dance with you again. Mm-hmm. Or you'll dance a certain way so that other people see you dance and will want to dance with you. Mm-hmm. And there's all this wanting to impress people, to secure some sort of friendship or connection with people on different levels. And a lot of it is driven by insecurity, that if we were just to go in and show up in our very natural state without doing anything, that we will not be accepted, or that we won't be good enough. You know, I think those are
your natural state of
you know, without trying to impress anyone, like without that anxiety, right? The anxiety is there because there's this fear, like, well, I can't relax and just be myself, because if I'm myself, I'm not going to be cool enough. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to be friends with people who are, you know, that I need to be friends with. Yeah. So,
do you think you have a lot of those people in Tango? I mean, I'm coming back to this kind of idea that I said I had when I had first started Tango, which was, these people are strange. Right?
You know, I thought about that because I just got an email from someone that said, you know, you mentioned it in the podcast that Tango people are weird, and I'm wondering if you could do an episode about that, about how Tango people are weird.
Yeah. The anxiety that you might have to be accepted. I don't know. There's maybe lots of adults have that, but in Tango, I feel like this has been said before, that Tango people are a little broken.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I've made my own observations about how I see that there's a lot of people who really want connection, but they don't necessarily have the skills in a normal social setting to generate those connections. Mm-hmm. You know, they're not comfortable in regular public spaces. Yeah. And Tango kind of provides this middle ground where it's a controlled environment. You're still around other people, but you can have a lot of privacy. Yeah. There's a lot of
really, you can it's like you can get up and be active in a thing and then revert.
Right.
Every 10 minutes, there's the carpool exit. And you can just jump off. You're like, I'm out. Get out of the car. I'm sitting here alone. I need to put my podcast on. Tango banter. Ooh, new episode.
Oh, I like that. Yeah, I think that's a very good part of tango that allows people like myself with anxiety to make it more manageable. Because there is that, at least there's some container for interacting with other people. It doesn't necessarily make it easier because the fears are still there, whether you're in a public space or you're in this kind of space where that's more controlled. I think everyone is dealing with some level of fear or anxiety.
But you don't think that's easier having that kind of controlled environment and being able to kind of...
I mean, what I meant to say is like the anxiety character that we're describing here. That anxiety character is the same whether I'm in a house party with a bunch of people who are not known to me or I'm at a tango party. It's the same anxiety. But it makes it, so it's not like the anxiety part gets easier. What gets easier is managing it. You know, I've noticed for myself, it's very easy for me to manage it in a tango setting because I'm just so familiar with the environment versus when we've gone to like your work parties where I don't know anyone and everybody's like drinking and talking about things. I have no idea what they mean. That's when it's very hard for me to manage my anxiety and not feel like an outsider. So and I have less options because I'm like, where do I go? What is this okay if I do this? Are people going to think that I'm weird if I do this? Like that becomes a question. We're bantering today on a very important subject because I've had multiple people ask me about your plans to dance 50-50.
Really?
At Caltech.
Yeah, I had some people.
And, I think the listeners want to know how that plan went. So first of all, you committed to dancing.
Yeah, I signed up as a switch.
You signed up as a switch.
So I tried to switch. And Friday night, I was pretty even. Saturday, I was pretty well into a deficit. I was leading mostly. And by Sunday, I really threw it out the window and for the most part led. But I did switch more than I have any weekend that I've been dancing. So it was a lot more. It did force me into, almost forced me into a state of mind of thinking like, man, this is tough. This is tough getting dances. You know?
This is when you were trying to get it as a follower?
Yeah, because I would generally try to get guys to lead me. And a woman told me that she, for the most part, she has trouble leading other women, that it's guys that want to follow. And I just thought that was so counterintuitive. Yeah, she
that she has trouble leading other women?
Maybe capaceoing other women.
Oh, yeah, she, as a female leader, was having a difficult time getting dances with the women.
Right.
And instead it was easier for her to capaceo men who wanted to follow.
Yeah.
That's a very strange.
That's why I kind of don't, I feel like maybe I just missed it. It could have been late on Sunday. At that point, I was delirious.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's so foggy. But there's like certain things that have kind of popped up in my mind since, you know, after a couple of days that are really nice. That Sunday was really nice.
Yeah, Caltech was an interesting event. This was sort of our culmination, another micro culmination, because we had the LA Tango Marathon 2 weeks prior. And it felt like a interesting difference in the crowd because both events are in LA.
Yeah.
But there was some it felt like a competing event for sure. And it seemed like a lot of the people that came to Caltech decided to come to Caltech over LA Tango Marathon. You know, I think it's an interesting challenge for tango communities, because tango is getting so big that you end up having events that are pretty close together and they're in the same sort of geographical area. And both events were very different. You know, they had their own identity, their own vibe. Yeah. And it seemed like LA Tango Marathon was a lot more inclusive. It was open to a lot more people. We saw a lot of advertising for it. There was a lot of community outreach, and there was a lot of opportunity for people to connect off the dance floor, like the Beach Milonga. And so it's a very community-oriented event. On the opposite side, it seemed like Caltech was like a very different tango event. It was very quiet. It was very small.
It is very collegiate.
There was not much advertising for it. And you had to be on a wait list to get in. A lot of people locally did not get in, which historically that always ruffles feathers. And, I talked earlier about an event in Texas that caused that kind of stir where people are like, local people were not invited to some private event. And back then, I was like, yeah, this kind of thing is going to keep happening. And it exactly happened in our community, where there is this very sort of select small event far away from, the regular crowd. And you have to sort of get in or get on the wait list. And in terms of the level, definitely you will say it's a higher level dancer experience.
I think the collegiate aspect, I mean, I still have not been to Ann Arbor, but from what I've experienced with people coming from Ann Arbor and what I've heard about it, it's like, it feels like there's a Caltech kind of vibe there too, because what you have is lots of young people coming into tango through collegiate like clubs, which Caltech Tango has had for 20 years, right? It was a 20-year anniversary.
It seemed like the crowd to me was some of the best dancers from East Coast, West Coast. I saw a lot of people from the Bay Area, and it definitely seemed like the level of the dancer that came was like super experienced, very much socially oriented, not like a performance type, advanced, has been around on the scene for a long time.
Yeah, so like real good sensitivity.
Good sensitivity, good musicality. Good sensitivity. And, I was kind of trying to describe to myself what I felt about it, because as I'm describing it, I'm sure somebody's listening to it. Oh, I want to be there. Like an event that has all like amazingly advanced dancers. But at the same time, I kind of clocked that, if you have like a high school group and you have a mixture, you have your class clown, you got the nerds, you got the popular kids, and you just have like a mixture of different types of people. And then you take just like all of the nerds and you put them separately into a room and you go there and hang out there. It'll be a very specific kind of experience. So it seemed like
Caltech was a whole bunch of nerds?
It not that I'm saying that the tango dancers are nerds. I'm just saying that if you take a particular level of dancer and only concentrate an event around that level, there's like a quality among people that I clocked that I usually do not experience, which is people keep to themselves, very introverted. Like some of my observation, some of the most gifted dancers who've been around the community for a long time are also some of the least socially adept people. And they might be very intelligent and super smart, but they just don't strike up conversations very easily. They tend to keep to themselves. So the event had this interesting vibe of like not necessarily as connected as what I would experience at somewhere like LA Tango Marathon, right, which you get like a cross section, right? You get, there's some really good dancers and they kind of keep to themselves. And then there's people who are not necessarily the best dancers, but they're really good at connecting, and they're good storytellers, and they love conversation. So then, it's like, Caltech was like, wow, what a rarefied atmosphere we're in, such high level. But then also it felt very detached. Like I kind of, like I myself am an introvert and I need help from extroverts to like get me included. But I found that there were many times that I would just be by myself and I would not be talking to anyone, even though I'm like surrounded by this beautiful atmosphere and music.
Right, which is kind of a really nice aspect to Caltech versus, a venue at LA Summer, because it was so spacious. Like you really kind of walked out into this corridor where you really could just sort of chill by yourself. And it wasn't strange to be there by yourself. It was actually just very relaxing. It was very easy for people to come up to. I asked at times a couple people if I could sit there next to them, and it was like that easy. A little different from kind of feeling like everything's kind of packed into a space where the number is just so much larger relative to the space you have.
Yeah. And I think, to your point, you can enjoy both aspects of it for different reasons. And what I came away with is that with an event like the Caltech Marathon, you get to experience something very specific, almost like, you're like special cuisine treat that you get once in a while, where you pay an enormous amount of money for a dessert that you could have made at home.
It melts when you put the hot cream on top.
Yeah, like something really special. You get that taste. But then ultimately it's not something that I felt like, oh yeah, I really hope I get this again, like very soon. Like I really need this. Like I really need that fix.
Yeah.
It didn't leave me wanting more. It was like, by the time it was over, I'm like, all right, this was great. I'm happy I was here, like moving on. And typically with a tango event at the end, there's, I don't know, I feel so attached to the people by the end of the event, and there's all this connection. There seems like, oh, I'm sad to leave. I'm sad this is done. This felt very like we just like passed through and now we're done.
Okay.
So it was very interesting.
I don't know if I would describe my experience quite the same.
I would hope not. I'd hope you have the complete opposite experience.
The feel of Caltech for me was more that experience when I used to travel a lot alone, and I would show up to a place, and for the most part, there were people I might know, but there was lots that I didn't. So there was lots of opportunity for, how do I introduce myself to this person or get a dance with this person? And, that was kind of a fun thing to do as a younger man, dancing tango and traveling. And so I really liked, it was kind of a bit of a trip down memory lane of sorts to be at Caltech. Summer Tango was, it has that feel. I mean, everything that you said is correct. Like the cross section, it's like it hasn't been segmented into just the nerds into one room. Like it's wide ranging. It lent itself to other kinds of experiences, and I had one of the best dances at that one.
Yeah?
Yeah.
When was that?
It was during your set.
Oh, that's right. My set on Sunday.
Yeah. Caltech. Yeah. I now I'm escaping me, but I mean, I had lots of good dances, right? Sort of like more. The overall feel of it was, oh man, fantastic dances, and maybe that is why one doesn't necessarily stick out relative to any others.
I made that similar observation a while back, that anytime I get to dance in a place where the level is super high, there is that feeling that it all blends together. and there's not much contrast between the dances, and in my memory, it's kind of a blur. Mm-hmm. So it makes me question myself, like, well, which would you rather? And it's always like, well, what I'd rather, of course, be in a room full of advanced dancers. But then in practicality, I don't feel I end up enjoying myself as much because it's so
anxiety
one-dimensional.
wants to make sure that you can hang out with the cool kids.
No, but I do think that my anxiety about that was a little higher at Caltech than at LA Tango Marathon. Mm-hmm. Definitely, I felt intimidated. Mm-hmm. And I know for a fact that my experience of intimidation and how that translates into my body language makes other people intimidated. And other people think that I don't want to connect. And I also know that other people are doing the same thing. Like, mm-hmm. It's very obvious to me. So when I'm dancing at an event like that, it's interesting because LA Tango Marathon feels to me as like a homecoming. Mm-hmm. You know, it's like, happens every year. It's always like the marker of the starting of summer. It's the long weekend. Mm-hmm. Your birthday's around that time. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of celebration. And even though I might not have like amazing dances, let's say the same number, mm-hmm. there's always something about that event that stands out in my memory, mm-hmm. you know, and it'll be like that dinner that we had with friends where we went somewhere, or the beach Malanga, and those kind of iconic memories. Mm-hmm. Even though it might be that you really want to be with the advanced dancers, like it doesn't necessarily, for me, make for a better time necessarily. A lot of it still goes back to the same anxieties and the same fears. And this time at Caltech in particular, more than LA Tango Marathon or any other event, I was mortified to realize how few names I can remember. Mm-hmm. And that was the thing that really stood out to me, because at this event, it was all these dancers that I see, you know, kind of spread out in other events, and they'll be like, oh, a couple over there, a couple over there. Now they're all in the same room, mm-hmm. and I've been seeing them for years. With many of them, I've danced maybe like a long time ago, and I haven't seen them in a long time, or I just met them and I don't remember their name. Mm-hmm. But it was sort of comical to me how many names I couldn't remember. Mm-hmm. And also the other experience that was really memorable for me, I think of the whole weekend, this will probably be my core memory that will stick with me, is that we had this conversation about the resting bitch face. Which, you know, when it comes to resting bitch face, nobody does it better than advanced tango dancers. I mean, so you have a whole room of it, like so many people. They just have a mask on, and you know, the two dancers I was standing next to at the table during the last tanda that you were dancing, because they had that. There was a last tanda, but then there was another last tanda. So we're talking about this.
Okay, I was like, there was a lost tanda?
There was a there was a last tanda,
honey,
and then
let's go find it. I want to spend my life finding it with you. Where is that tanda?
So we started talking about that for some people, when they just have their face relaxed, that they look upset. Mm-hmm. They look unfriendly. Mm-hmm. And I think it's a very common thing to see someone's face and just expect that they don't want to interact with you. Mm-hmm. So in my case, there's been this dancer that I swear I've been seeing this dancer on the circuit for at least a decade. always sort of far away. It's a woman, so for a long time she was just this really amazing follower, dancing with all of the best leaders, far away from me. Never had any reason to talk to her. Then when I started leading, it was always like, oh, there's that amazing dancer. She doesn't want to dance with me. And she's never looked me in the eye. We've never interacted at all. She ends up capoeiraing me. And it just floored me. I could not believe it. And it was one of those like, is she looking behind me? So we get on the dance floor and we start dancing. And in the first song, my anxiety is like, can I do justice to this thing here that's happening because she's such an amazing dancer?
Sure,
I have what it takes? Like
earlier when I said fear, this is the description of that fear. Yeah. In that moment, being so concerned with what? Describe it. What is it that you're fearfully you won't deliver?
I just want to measure up. I just want to meet what I want to, I guess, live up to the expectation or
because she'll be your friend if you do it real good.
Is it why? I don't know. Maybe it might be that, or maybe I'm just like so afraid of embarrassing myself. A lot of it is, I think, very primal, right? It's about being excluded or not accepted at the end, like not being viable in some way. Like it goes back to
not being chosen,
not being included. I'm sure it goes back to those sort of basic things.
I'm sorry I made you reside in this moment because then proceeded.
So then we separate after the first song. And she looks at me and I just clocked how different her face was, her eyes, and she just smiled and she was so bright. And I was like, wow, that's so different from the expression that I have in my mind whenever I've seen her. And she says to me, I've been wanting to dance with you for so long. And I was like, oh, again, this thing happens, which like, I don't even know how many people out there feel that way about me, that like they've wanted to dance with me and they think I don't want to dance with them. And I'm on the other end thinking they don't want to dance with me, right? Like that kind of thing happens a lot. And perhaps the gift of a place like that, an event like Caltech, where you do have maybe somewhat more antisocial but very advanced dancers all together, is like we finally have a chance to like break through that barrier and sort of establish a way to connect, because there's no distraction, right? There are no class clowns, demanding attention out there.
I was definitely out there. What?
You kept it pretty low. I mean,
I didn't class clown.
You did think
much
about wearing that surfing towel that you did wear at LA Tango Marathon, which I
love
think
that towel.
People loved, and for our listeners who weren't there, which is a lot of people.
Honey, I'll be right back.
Alex wore this cape that you wear after you surf or you spend time in the ocean. You put this cape on and it's like a towel. And it was for the Hang Loose Milonga. That's the theme.
Yeah.
There's a video of it, of you dancing with the organizer. That's very cute.
Oh, right, yeah.
Maybe we'll share a snippet of that with our fans.
Sure.
So you thought about busting that out, but you didn't.
Okay.
I think that was good.
Yeah.
I think that's a good decision.
So there was no class clowns that were going to do what? Distract you?
I'm just saying, if we were to harken back to my metaphor of it being a high school where you take all the nerds, it's like one of the positive aspects of doing that for the nerds is that if perhaps when you take out other people who might take up the space and the spotlight, and you just, leave all of the people who usually would be kind of in the background, sort of not being in the spotlight, but you now give them the space, right? Then there's opportunity for the nerds to kind of come out of their shell a little bit and sort of be more comfortable. So I'm just making that as a possibility, and I hope people are not offended that I keep referring to tango dancers as nerds, because I don't think that's a derogatory term personally, but some people might be like,
are you kidding me? Nerds are so hot right now.
The main point I was trying to make is this iconic experience for me from Caltech event is, dancing with this woman and having this amazing connection where I'm like, oh my God, all these years been seeing each other from across the room at all these events multiple times a year. Mm-hmm. And I'm completely convinced that, she doesn't really want to dance with me. And how both, in a way, a little tragic, like, oh, we've wasted so much time. Imagine all the dancing we could have had. But also like, wow, how precious. Like what a buildup, what a treasure. That's the word. Like discovering, like uncovering this unexpected treasure. Like you weren't even expecting this. And here it is. And it was really special for me to experience that with her. Well, shout out to Caltech for
the snacks.
The snacks.
The
because it felt like a cornucopia. I just sort of realized, especially the first night when we came there, and they just had like bowls and bowls and bowls of like little crackly things that you could just like reach in and grab. And I thought, oh my God, this is the perfect kind of food for tango dancers.
Yeah.
Where it's stuff that your fingers don't get dirty, and it's both salty and sweet. And there was like a lot of it.
Well, the popcorn was, that was like a little sticky. So, but plenty of napkins.
Because you were eating the kettle corn.
Yeah, I was doing the kettle corn.
There was the kettle corn and there was the regular corn.
When you have the option between kettle corn and regular corn.
You take both. But they had these little baggies where you could put the popcorn.
Like that, probably done
that. You could put the popcorn in there, and then they had like 10 different jars with like chocolate covered pretzels and chocolate covered nuts and some sort of crackers. And what I loved, I felt like a kid, because you could like come up with your little paper baggie, which was like a newspaper. It looked like a newspaper print on it. Mm-hmm. And you could just fill it up with all sorts of things. Mm-hmm. And then just sit there and eat and leave it, come back to it. So it was a very innovative strategy.
Yeah. Did you actually come back to it?
I did. I did. All right, yes.
All right. I ate plenty of bags probably left behind.
No, I ate all of it. It was really good. So the snacks was
solids.
Yeah, that was solid. But the music. Really. The music is where I thought I made a really interesting observation that I didn't expect. Mm-hmm. The main difference between, I would say, the music at LA Tango Marathon and Caltech was that at Caltech, it was the first time in recent memory, at least since COVID, that I was at a marathon or at a big tango event that did not play any contemporary tango. There might have been a Hugo Diaz Milonga song or a tanda. Other than that, it was strictly traditional, 100%. As we were going to the event and I was listening to the music, I became more and more aware of like, wow, how good this music is and how good the DJs were, how they arranged the tandas and how well it worked. Mm-hmm. It was so comfortable. Like at no point did something play that I was like, oh, I don't want to dance this. It was just so good. Now, I've actually gotten used to, most of the time when I go to an event, it's an expectation of mine that I'll hear some contemporary tangos. And typically at any marathon, I expect that I'm going to like some things and dislike other things. Mm-hmm. That's typically the case. Mm-hmm. At LA Tango Marathon, my favorite milonga was the Sunday night. That was like my favorite set. Mm-hmm. And that's a pretty expected thing for me. Usually there's like one day or one night really stands out, and the rest of it is like, okay, I like some things and I don't like other things.
Yeah.
This was different at Caltech because I really felt like every DJ was just exceptional.
Yeah.
It was such high quality DJing that I kind of, it struck me that, wow, it can be this good. Like that's pretty amazing to have this kind of DJing every time that I go. So that was really like nice.
The DJs somehow helped with phrasing. I always suspect that some DJs, they're messing with the equalizer a little bit to emphasize one area of the band, like the strings or the vocals or the bass. And sometimes it almost feels like you hear it so clearly, that this should be danced on the melody versus the beat underneath. And it feels like some DJs can really kind of make that so clear through their
manipulating of the sound.
Right. Yeah. That it also becomes much easier for your partner to actually hear. And so the feeling you get is that, oh, we are totally right there, riding this wave of melody, honey. I'm stepping from half beat to quarter. Ooh, slipping a 16th.
Yeah, exactly. That.
That kind of good.
Yeah. So all the DJs were exceptional, and it was a rare experience for me to like each set equally. Like I couldn't tell you which set I liked more.
Yeah, but if I forced you to, I brought one of those cats in here.
Don't make me. But secondly, that was my next observation, because as I was realizing that I'm really loving the music, some DJs are very particular about the golden age of tango, and they will say that they only DJ golden age. It's kind of like a religious stance for them,
Right.
And for a long time, I was like, yeah, whatever. It's all good. There's great golden age. There's great this kind of music. Everything has a place, in the tango experience, and we can enjoy all kinds of music. But this was, I guess, an experience for me that I haven't had before, where I understood perhaps the power of the golden age music, and that when you really spend time solid in that time frame of the genre and just really hear those orchestras over and over again without introducing anything that's more contemporary, there's just this very interesting, cool experience that's there.
Were there any songs that struck you as new?
Yes, I did Shazam. I think I did Shazam a couple of songs. There was like a couple of valses that I heard that were new, but there was a few times that I was like, wow, I can't believe this is a new song for me. I knew the orchestra, like it'd be somebody like DeSarly or somebody, and I'd be like, I can't believe I haven't heard this DeSarly before. So there were some new songs to me. I did not go up to the DJ to ask them what they were. And it's funny because I typically tell people like, yeah, just come up to the DJ and ask them. But, sometimes there is that feeling like, no, you don't do that. Don't disturb. Don't mess. Don't mess with them, what they're doing. Don't break their focus. And again, this might be me projecting and interpreting their RBF.
Yeah.
And they might just be happy to tell me. But I don't know. Sometimes I find myself, because I think about music so much, it's so much on my mind. Every time I'm dancing, I'm always thinking about it, that I almost have to be like, you know what? Just give it a rest. You don't have to know it. You don't have to know what song this is. Like, just enjoy it for what it is and move on with your life. Like, you don't have to know everything.
Sure. Yeah. So. I mean, I've never I never had that kind of anxiety. I have it a little bit now. And now, the question then becomes, are you in that zone? And do you prefer people not disturb you sometimes when you're DJing? Is that what you are projecting?
Good question. Because when I DJ, a lot of people come and ask me, and I typically don't mind. I'm a very different kind of DJ, I guess. I DJ a lot of alt, and I think with alt, it's different. People feel a lot more entitled. I mean, I get messages on Instagram lately where people are like, share with me your alt list, like they're just like, hey, you DJ'd at that one event. Can you send me your Spotify list? And I'm like,
the whole list.
Yeah, they just like ask me for the playlist.
That does feel a little different than, I doubt that would be asked for tango music.
Yeah, I mean, once in a while, it's rare. It's as rare as somebody requesting a song. There are people out there, at least one every time who'll come up to me and be like, hey, by the way, can you play this song today? And I do have a sample alt list that I'm happy to share with people. So if somebody listening, if you want a list of my top alt songs that I play. I'm
heavy on the 1 and 3.
Yeah. I'm happy to share that. So you can just reach out to me.
A lot of Drake.
A lot of Drake and Usher. Definitely Usher. I'm just kidding.
I don't know. No, not again.
Not again. I wanted to go back and ask you a little bit more about your experience of following. Because I'm curious if you made any revelations about your dance through that experience.
Yeah, I felt much more in control of my following, and I think that manifested in being more connected to my axis. And I've seen myself on camera dancing a little bit where I do a lot of leaning forward. And so I can kind of fall a lot, and that's obviously going to throw the leader off.
I noticed that this event struck me as very heavy on men following. Like it seemed like there were a lot of men who were actively seeking to follow other men. And I even had that experience of somebody saying you next to me, that was the first time that a guy is looking my way, but he's really looking to Capaceo you versus me.
Yeah, I think it was an easier event to Capaceo.
Did you guys switch off? Did you switch off lead and follow, or was it?
Yeah, not every time, but I guess if I was dancing with a guy, then usually we would switch off. That implies that most guys that I danced with were guys that also switched. But I don't think that was exclusively the case. I did have some tandas with guys that were more just leaders, and I followed the whole time. But
yeah, we had this question. I had this question with one of my partners where who asks to switch, or who decides who's going to be leading first.
Yeah.
And whether it's even an insult to like ask the other person to switch.
Yeah. Yeah. I try not to ask it.
You try not to ask it.
I try not to ask it. The sort of initial feel of the Capaceo has a bit of a direction. I feel like the thrower of the Capaceo, more so in that event, does the initial start, and then if they're not going to lead the whole time and they are going to switch, then later we switch, maybe after second song, alternate. But usually I think I would do like 2 and 2. I think that's generally.
And did you find that you had to do something different for your Capaceo to convey to your potential partners that you wanted to dance with them, or did Capaceo actually work?
Yeah, usually, it would have to be closer. I feel like you don't throw Capaceo real long, although I did get that one where we were sitting, right? that was that was dope, right? That was, kudos to him. It was a good Capaceo. But generally I have to be kind of like a little closer. And what I tend to do is kind of come up and kind of feel out whether the guy is kind of getting that I'm maybe like, hey,
getting your vibe.
Yeah, I'm trying to get you to lead me. But to your point about the music, the reason Sunday it didn't happen was because there were like a good number of like really, maybe you call them romantic, maybe not overtly romantic, but songs that might be described as sweet. Maybe some, I don't know if there was any falsetto, but
there was falsetto, yes.
So those sorts of tandas, and this happened a lot at Caltech, you could feel that people were like, ooh, yeah, okay. They didn't know who they were specifically going to try to get because there's lots of good dancers. They know there's lots of good dancers. And so it becomes this kind of like, who am I going to dance with?
Yeah.
And I felt like it sometimes you had this couple of moments where not a ton of people are going to dance for. A couple people were like quick with it, but like lots of people, everybody that you could see in your field of view, you could almost see them like, you could see the Cabecea, right? It was like heads were up, there was looking around, and it was like,
but it's like looking around and looking down at the same time.
Right. Yeah, no, it's trying to be both things, right? Very clandestine, but it's also very obvious.
I had a really hard time with
the music playing in the background too.
Yeah.
You're like, ooh, and like, yeah, you're gonna want to get this one in with somebody who's really good, and there's plenty of dancers here that could do that.
And so you're saying that time they would not choose you, they would want to dance with someone else, or that you would want to dance it with a woman, because you're saying on Sunday specifically.
Right, yeah. So in those times, the guys that would like, I know this guy's gonna be like, bro, not now, man. Like, get out of here, buddy. Like, you should, no. And I get that because like I might have that. I might be like, yeah, that'd be cool, man, but
you wanna do it with a woman.
There might be yeah. Although usually for like, that's not true, because I remember in those moments thinking, oh, I would like to follow this. Right. But like I felt bad asking these guys to lead me for a song I really wanted to follow, knowing that they probably would prefer to dance it with a woman.
Wow.
It's hard out here.
Oh, that's so sad and sweet. You're caretaking of the leader.
Yeah, maybe a little bit, but I mean, I think
you're a wonderful follower, honey. They'd be lucky to dance with you.
I was trying to break, honey. And look, sometimes I was like, I think he enjoyed that. I feel like he probably enjoyed that. I put a little English on my pivots.
That's great. That's a great note to finish on. Our next event is Tangamente. And, I did want to mention before we go that the Montana Tango Festival
definitely
is coming up in September. And that's a pretty cool event because it's their second or third time doing it. It's a pretty new festival. It's out in nature in Missoula. It's very, very pretty. I'll be DJing and teaching. I'm teaching a bunch of classes. I'm DJing my signature alt mix. So I'll include a link to the event in the show notes. And there's also a discount code included. So if you use that discount code, you'll get 10% off. And hopefully all of you have already signed up to join my private Facebook group. If you haven't done so already, check it out. I go live in that group every Friday, and hopefully we'll chat with you next week at another banter.